The horse stumbled on loose rock, and she barely felt it. Her body swayed with emotion like a rag doll's, bound wrist to wrist, ankles raw beneath the leather straps. Dust clung to her tongue. Her lips were cracked and split from days under the sun, but her husband hadn't looked back once. Not even when she cried out his name in the cold just 2 nights ago, not even when her voice broke into sobs the prairie swallowed whole. He was up ahead, riding light, carrying only his rifle and poker debts. They came to a stop near a dry creek bed where the wind had carved bones out of the earth. She was pulled from the horse like a sack, knees slamming hard into the dirt. Her husband didn't wait to explain. He simply tipped his hat to the man who waited on the ridge and said, "That settles it, don't it?" The man didn't move. His horse stood still as stone, black as oil, mane tangled with feathers and bone. The wind shifted. He descended without a word, boots silent even on gravel. Not white, not fully Comanche either. His skin bore both fire and shadow. Scars ran like rivers across his forearms, a burn marked his jaw, and his eyes were cold, old, watching. The woman turned her face away, praying the ground might split open and bury her whole. "She's worth more than what I owe," her husband muttered. "Strong. Got no disease. She'll do." The warrior said nothing. He studied her for a long time. Not her body. Her eyes. The shame in them. The fire under it. Then he nodded once. Her husband laughed like a man released from prison. Didn't even look at her as he mounted and rode off, hoofs pounding a farewell into the dust. She didn't scream. That had been taken from her. She didn't run. That had been beaten out of her. She just sat in the dirt and waited for the blade or the rope. But the warrior did not draw a weapon. He knelt and cut the binding at her wrists. Her arms dropped, limp and bloodless. He handed her a water skin. She stared. "You drink or you die," he said. His voice was rough flint. Nothing more. Her hands shook as she brought the water to her lips. It spilled down her chin, sweet and cruel. They traveled in silence. He did not touch her. Did not speak again that day. At nightfall, they stopped by a canyon edge where the wind moaned low through the rocks. He lit a small fire, gave her half a tin of beans, and walked away to sleep beneath the stars while she took shelter near the flame. The night grew sharp with cold, and she curled tight, bones aching. She awoke with his blanket draped over her. It went on like that for days. He spoke little. Never laid a hand on her. Gave her the better cuts of meat when he hunted. Once, she tried to ask his name, but he only looked to the sky, as if it weren't his to share. She wondered if she was still a prisoner, or if something stranger had happened, something she didn't yet have words for. He was a man of habit. At dawn, he watched the sun rise with folded arms. At dusk, he carved lines into a bit of old cedar. She noticed he never turned his back when he bathed in the river. Modesty or caution, she couldn't tell. What surprised her more was how he looked away when she stripped to clean herself. No man had ever looked away before. She began to notice things. The way his eyes lingered on birds in flight. The way he crouched to feel the earth, as if listening for something she couldn't hear. He didn't fear the land. He belonged to it. She did not. She was still the girl ripped from Georgia soil, born behind a shed, taught to walk by whispers and switchings. She didn't know what it meant to belong. And yet, when the wind rose and howled one night like a pack of wolves, she did not feel afraid. Not with him nearby, standing guard beneath the moonlight with a rifle across his knees. It wasn't safety she felt, exactly. It was something colder, quieter, like being seen but not owned. On the 5th night, as they camped near a dried-out watering hole, she tried to speak. "You could have let them take me," she said, her voice hoarse. "Back there. The men." He didn't answer. "You killed them. They were cowards. You still could have let them." He looked at her then. Not with kindness. Not cruelty either. "They gave you to me like a thing," he said. "I don't take things." She felt the words crawl over her like fire. "You planning to keep me?" He didn't respond. Later, as she curled by the fire, eyes open to the stars, she whispered to the dark, I got a boy somewhere. Don't know if he's alive. Ain't no way to find out. The warrior said nothing for a long time. Then, I had a son. That was all. No more. They traveled east toward a line of broken hills. She asked why, and he said shelter. A storm was coming. She smelled it too, something electric in the wind, heavy and bitter like regret. The land grew stranger, less forgiving. Coyotes watched from ridges. The sky turned copper. At the base of a crumbling ridge, they made camp. As dusk fell, she felt uneasy. The fire wouldn't catch. The shadows came too quickly. She heard it first, the faint jangle of spurs. Then a voice. Well now, if it ain't the Comanche ghost himself, a man drawled from behind the rocks. 3 riders emerged, dust-covered, eyes like coin slots. Boys say you've been keeping a fine little prize, one said. She yours, or just something you forgot to bury? She stepped back, trembling, but the warrior stood, calm as a tombstone. She's not yours to take, he said. Ain't yours either, the man spat. The next minute came fast, too fast to remember clearly. A flash of steel. A scream. 2 bodies in the dirt, throats cut clean. The last one scrambled back, blood on his shirt, teeth bared in terror. Go, the warrior said. The man fled into the dusk, like a dog whipped too hard. The woman stared at the bodies, then at him. Her voice cracked. Why? He wiped his blade clean on a patch of grass. Because you were given, he said. But now you're mine by choice. She didn't know whether to cry or run. Instead, she stood beside him in the fading light, and for the first time, she wasn't afraid of the silence between them. The storm broke that night, wild and fierce, and they sat close by the fire beneath a makeshift shelter of branches and hide. The thunder cracked, but she didn't flinch. His hand rested near hers, not touching, just close. And for once, the land felt less like a grave and more like something waiting to be reborn. The cold came in sudden, not like a slow winter creeping, but like something hunting them, fast, sharp, full of teeth. The plains turned brittle beneath their horses' hooves, grass freezing into iron blades, and the sky lost all color. Only wind and silence left. They crossed into pine country, hills veined with snowmelt and the memory of blood. No trail, no road. Just instinct and old ghosts. He found the cabin hidden near a stream bed, tucked between 2 granite shoulders. Abandoned, but not ruined. Still standing, still breathing sap and ash and old ashtrays of war. The door creaked like a dying animal, but inside it was dry, and the roof held. That night, they made fire in the cracked hearth. He hunted elk. She dried the meat. For the first time in weeks, they slept without boots on. There was no name between them. No claim. No reason spoken aloud for staying together, yet neither packed to leave. In the mornings he carved. Not for beauty, just something to do with his hands. The cedar stick had turned into a totem before she noticed what it was. Not a symbol. A face. A face that looked like hers. He didn't explain. She didn't ask. She found herself speaking more, not in big things, but in fragments. My mother used to say the cold was God's breath on wicked men. I used to hum to the baby when I cooked. One day, I found a dead rabbit in my doll box. Her voice carried less tremble now, as if the land itself was soaking up her fear. Sometimes he'd respond. Never stories. Just facts. The Comanche say snow is the sky mourning its own emptiness. My people taught me to never whistle at night. It brings the dead. I fought in raids when I was 13. Killed a man by 15. Didn't feel anything until the 3rd one. They were building something, though neither of them could name it. She watched him from the doorway one afternoon as he sharpened a blade, the edge catching light. There was rhythm in his movements, not violence, like each stroke was a song only he could hear. She realized she'd stopped fearing his silence. Started needing it. It was the only space where she could listen to herself think without judgment. One night, she had the dream again. The crying, the white porch, the sound of boots walking away with her child. She woke in a sweat, shaking, hands clenching the thin blanket like it was the boy's shirt. He didn't touch her, just sat up, watched her until the storm inside her passed. "You still see them?" she asked into the dark. "Every night," he said. "Your son?" He nodded once. She leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. "I don't know if mine's dead or alive. I used to pray he was gone so he wouldn't have to live like me. Then I hated myself for it." He said nothing, but the silence between them was no longer empty. It was full of all the words neither could shape yet. The next morning, he took her riding. The wind had softened, the snow melting into the earth's deep veins. She hadn't been on a horse without ropes since her arrival. She gripped the reins tight, awkward, but he didn't laugh. Just rode ahead and waited when she fell behind. They stopped near a ridge with a view so wide it made her chest ache. Hills rolled like ocean waves frozen in time, trees shivering in wind so thin it might as well have been prayer. "You can leave," he said. She stared at him. "I brought you here because it was safe. You don't owe me." The thought struck her harder than a whip ever had. He wasn't keeping her. He never had. The weight she'd carried, of being traded, owned, passed from hand to hand like flesh paper, suddenly cracked and let in light. "I don't have anywhere to go," she whispered. "Even if I did, I'd still be alone." "You're not," he said, then turned and rode off before she could ask what he meant. That evening, they found a trapper's grave near the riverbank. Simple stones. No name. He knelt beside it, touched the earth, murmured words in a language she didn't understand. She waited a respectful distance away until he finished. "What did you say?" she asked. "May your bones return to the soil without anger." They stayed longer the next few days. Gathered wood. Patched holes in the cabin wall. Made things livable. She stitched his torn coat. He made a latch for the door. They began speaking like people expecting to see tomorrow. But peace in the West was never more than borrowed time. It came first as a scent smoke on the wind, then a sound, distant and sharp, the ring of a rifle crack, too far to be accidental. The next day, a rider passed near the ridge, a scout, not Comanche, but settler. He didn't stop, but he saw them. Her breath caught in her throat. "Will they come back?" she asked. He didn't answer. His silence was no longer comfort, it was fear. The next night, he moved his saddle gear inside. Loaded the rifle. Checked the back exit of the cabin. She caught him staring out the window, jaw tight. "You think they'll try to take me back?" He nodded. "They'll call me stolen," she said, bitterness burning the back of her throat. "Call you a savage." "They won't ask what was given," he said. Her voice broke. "I wasn't given. I was thrown away." He looked at her then long and hard. "Then let's make sure they don't get to take anything else." They packed light. Rode northwest, toward higher land. Snow fell again that night, soft, like ash. They made camp under a cliffside, fire low, horses restless. In the middle of the night, a sound split the dark. A gunshot. She screamed before she even registered it. He tackled her to the ground just as a second shot shattered the rocks above. He rolled, rifle ready, eyes scanning the black. Then he saw him, just a boy. 17, maybe. Hands shaking. Wearing a town deputy's badge too big for his chest. "Drop it," the warrior growled. The boy hesitated. "I said drop it." The gun clattered to the dirt. The woman stood slowly, trembling. The boy was sobbing. "They said there was a woman. That you were holding her. That you were gonna raise an army. I just wanted to be brave." The warrior stepped forward. "Don't," she said. He paused. She took the rifle from his hands, unloaded it, walked over to the boy and handed it back. "Go," she said. "Before someone makes you into a killer." The boy ran like the wind itself had slapped him. They didn't speak again until dawn. As the sun rose, painting the snow in gold and fire, she looked at the warrior. "You would have killed him," she said. "Yes. But you didn't. You stopped me." She touched his hand. "I don't want to be a ghost anymore," she said. "And I don't want you to be one either." He didn't pull away. For the first time, he said, "You're not a prisoner." She looked him in the eye. "Neither are you." Snow melted into spring, and the land woke slowly, shedding its white death for budding green and the sound of running water. They rode north through canyon passes carved like scars in the earth, following no map but memory and wind. She had begun to laugh again, quiet, short bursts that surprised her more than him. Sometimes she even smiled without looking over her shoulder. He noticed. He noticed everything. How she hummed when tending the fire, how she no longer flinched when thunder cracked or branches snapped behind her. She wore her fear like a thin shawl now, still there, but not wrapped tight around her skin. They came across a small town wedged in a shallow valley. No name on the signs, just goods, painted crooked on a store window, and a church steeple missing its bell. She pulled her hat low over her brow. He kept his rifle slung across his back, eyes narrowed beneath the brim. They needed supplies, flour, salt, nails, more bullets. The people watched them like they'd ridden out of the earth itself. Not a word was spoken until the shopkeep, a woman with gray hair and hard eyes, asked, "She with you?" He nodded. The woman's jaw twitched. "Then I'll serve you, but you don't stay long." They didn't. Outside, she walked beside him, basket in hand, shoulders stiff. "They look at you like you're already in the ground," she said. "They look at you like you forgot your place." She stopped walking. "I didn't forget," she said. "I left it." He turned to face her. "It'll follow you. They always make sure of that." "Then let it follow," she said, and kept walking. That night, he carved another face, this one stronger. Sharper jaw, a chin tilted upward like defiance. She didn't ask who it was meant to be. She knew. They were camped 3 miles out of town when they heard hooves. Not one rider. Several. He was already standing by the fire before she had time to rise. Rifle in hand, jaw set. "Stay low," he said. 5 men came riding through the pines, slow and proud. Leading them was a man in a marshal's coat, too clean for honest work. He had gold in his teeth and death in his eyes. "Evenin'," he called. "We got word you were sheltering stolen property." He stepped forward. "She ain't property." "Not your call, Redskin. Law says if she was purchased or married, she's to be returned unless freed by man's decree. I don't answer to your law." "Well, that's the problem, ain't it?" The marshal smiled. "You think living out here makes you sovereign, but we hang sovereigns just the same." The men dismounted. Hands on pistols. She stepped forward. "I ain't stolen. I was sold. Thrown away. Left to rot." The marshal tilted his head. "Don't change what you are, girl. Don't matter who holds the reins." He raised the rifle. "Then I'll show you what matters." But before the first shot, a voice called out from the dark. "You fire that weapon, Marshal. You best be ready to dig your own grave." From the trees, more shapes emerged, silent and painted, Comanche warriors bearing rifles and bows, their eyes sharp and watching. The marshal's smile vanished. "You don't want trouble," he said. One of the warriors stepped forward, older than the rest, with feathers braided into silver-streaked hair. He looked at the man beside her, nodded once, and said something in their tongue. The younger man replied, voice steady. The elder turned to the marshal. "He's not alone." The standoff hung like ice in the air. Finally, the marshal spat. "Let the savage keep her. Ain't worth blood." They mounted and rode off without another word. When they were gone, the warriors faded back into the trees like ghosts returning to the soil. She turned to him. "You called them?" "No," he said. "They were watching. They always watch." That night, by the fire, she spoke first. "What did the elder say?" He asked if I had chosen a path. "And what did you tell him?" "That I had chosen someone." She stared at the flames, hands trembling slightly. "You believe in that?" she whispered. "In choosing. I believe in what I've seen. In what I've fought for." He looked at her. "I believe in you." Silence fell again, but not the kind that separates. It wrapped around them like the warmth of the fire, low and honest. The next days passed in motion, fording rivers, crossing valleys soaked in spring green. She rode more confidently now, sat straighter in the saddle. He began to teach her how to shoot with both hands, how to listen for tracks, how to disappear into a tree line without a sound. She learned fast. He watched her from the edge of the clearing one dusk, the sun setting behind her like a crown of fire, rifle steady in her hands. "You'll be ready," he said. She didn't ask for what. But readiness wasn't always enough. On the fourth night, as they made camp by a wide river, she heard a sound, footsteps. Not loud. Intentional. He was gone for firewood. She reached for the rifle. 3 men burst from the brush, strangers, hungry-eyed, smelling of sweat and rot. "Well now," one hissed. "She's prettier than they said." She lifted the rifle. "Back away." They laughed. One moved faster than she could react, grabbed the barrel. The shot rang out. Missed. Then a blur. He arrived like a shadow with teeth, blade in hand. One man dropped instantly, throat open. The second screamed before steel found his belly. The last tried to run. He didn't get far. Blood soaked into the earth. The firewood lay forgotten. She knelt, hands still shaking around the stock of the rifle. "I tried," she said. "You did more than try." His voice wasn't praise. It was belief. They buried the men beneath the roots of an old elm. She didn't speak during the digging. When it was done, she said quietly, "If they keep coming, they will." "Then we keep moving?" "No." She looked at him. "We stop running," he said. "We make our stand." Her throat went dry. "Then we need a place worth dying for." He nodded. "Then let's go find it." They found it in a broken valley bordered by black cliffs and tall pines that whispered even when the wind held its breath. A place forgotten by the railroads, too wild for ranchers, too sacred for settlers. The river curved like a protective arm around the land, its current slow but deep, carrying the voice of ancient things. He said it was once a Comanche summer camp, abandoned after a sickness took too many children. She said it felt like the earth still remembered them, and he agreed. They built slow. With hands blistered and backs sore, they raised a shelter from felled trees and mud-packed stone. She gathered roots, laid snares, planted seeds with trembling hope. He hunted and watched the ridgelines. At night, they lay in silence, the stars blinking like 100 watchful eyes. Sometimes he spoke her name in the dark, quiet and reverent, though she'd never given it. It had come to him one night in a dream, and when she heard it from his lips, it felt like something she'd never known she missed. Weeks passed, then months, and peace, real, living peace, began to take shape. But peace in the West is like a candle in the wind. It glows brightest just before the gust. The first sign came with a hawk circling low at dawn, feathers dark with soot. He watched it glide over the trees, then vanish like a warning whispered too late. That same day, they found the tracks, horses 6 or 7, deep grooves in the mud and boot prints too fresh to be passing strangers. She touched the ground where one of the tracks turned slightly, a small scuff in the soil that told her more than words. They were watching. He nodded. "They'll return." She didn't flinch. Not anymore. They prepared in silence, like 2 spirits who'd walked this path before. He laid traps along the ridge. She sharpened the blades. They reinforced the cabin, barricaded the weak spots. She stood in the doorway with her rifle resting on her hip, like she'd been born to hold it. That night, rain fell in sheets. Thunder broke across the cliffs like war drums. And still, the storm inside them held steadier than the sky. They came at dawn, 6 men, faces wrapped in scarves, rifles drawn, horses snorting in the cold mist. The leader dismounted, boots heavy in the mud, voice cutting through the quiet like a blade. "You've got something that don't belong to you." She stepped forward before he could. "No. I am something that was never yours to take." The man smirked. "Lady, you were bought. Sold. Traded like sugar and gunpowder. Ain't no use pretending you're more than coin." He raised his hand. The shot came from behind the rocks. One man screamed, went down clutching his leg. The trap had sprung. Then chaos. Gunfire cracked across the clearing. Smoke swallowed the trees. He moved like shadow, flanking the invaders, never seen until it was too late. She stayed at the door, firing with careful aim, breathing slow, each shot a memory purged. One of the men reached the wall, tried to torch it. She met him with steel, the knife sliding under his ribs like it had always known the way. Blood mixed with rain, seeping into the earth. Then silence. Only two of them still stood. The leader, trembling, face streaked with soot and mud, and her, eyes dark with fury older than her years. He stumbled back, dropping his weapon. "I was just doing what I was told," he whispered. "Don't kill me. I didn't mean no harm." She walked to him, boots squelching in the blood-wet grass. Rain matted her hair to her face, steam rising from her skin. "No harm," she said. "You think harm only lives in bullets?" She raised her knife. He whimpered, dropped to his knees.
She stopped.
Her hand shook. Then she lowered the blade.
"No," she said.
"I won't carry your death with me." She turned away. He didn't get far. The Comanche warrior stepped out from the trees and ended it with one arrow, clean and silent. They buried the dead together, 6 nameless men in a pit carved by rain. No prayers, only silence. That night, they sat by the fire, soaked and shivering, but alive. "I saw your face when you spared him," he said. "You chose." She looked at him, eyes rimmed with red. "I chose not to be like them." He nodded. "And that's what makes you strong." She laughed then, cracked and tired, but full of something real. "We fought for this," she said. "This land. This breath. This fire. We earned this." He reached across the flames and took her hand. "Then let's never give it up." And when dawn broke again, the valley was quiet. Not with fear, but with the hush of something new being born. In the weeks that followed, more came, runaways, outcasts, orphans of war and law. A blind boy who could track wolves by sound. A half-white girl with healing hands. A freedman and his wounded wife. They came because they heard whispers of a place where the lost could belong. And she welcomed them. She stood tall with her rifle, and her voice steady. She told them stories by firelight, sang lullabies she once sang to her son. He taught them to hunt, to survive, to speak the language of wind and trees. They called her mother, though her womb had been empty for years. They called him chief, though he claimed no title. In the end, they weren't remembered by names. They were remembered by legacy, by a valley where no chains held, where justice lived not in gallows, but in choice. Where a woman once sold as debt became something fierce and holy. And the warrior beside her, he was no longer just a blade. He was her shield, her home. Together, they were the story whispered on cold nights, the fire burning against the dark. And the land remembered them. Always.